The studio lights hit like midday sun, and the applause rolled in waves as Justin Timberlake stepped onto Kelly Clarkson's stage with a quick grin that looked practiced but warm. Kelly welcomed him like an old friend, cracking a joke about nostalgia, boy band chaos, and how every guest says they're doing great even when life is wild. Justin laughed, waved to the crowd, and took his seat. At first, it felt like a safe, upbeat interview until the questions started leaning sharper than anyone expected. Kelly opened with the usual highlights, new projects, touring life, and the kind of feel-good chatter daytime TV live zone. Justin answered smoothly, leaning forward, hands clasped, voice calm. But the energy shifted when Kelly mentioned the headlines and the way fame keeps pulling people back into old stories. Justin's smile tightened just a fraction. He nodded, like he'd heard this introduction before, like he already knew the next sentence might poke a bruise that never fully healed. The crowd stayed cheerful, but you could sense the room listening harder. Kelly's tone was still friendly, yet the phrasing became specific, steering toward controversies that fans argue about online. Justin gave a careful response, the kind that sounds polite but measured as short sentences, minimal detail, eyes steady. Kelly tried to lighten it with humor, but the humor landed slightly off, like a joke told a second too late. Justin's jaw flexed, and he took a breath that looked more like restraint than relaxation. Kelly pivoted to relationships in the spotlight, the pressure of being treated like a headline instead of a person. She framed it as empathy, but her examples felt pointed. Justin's posture shifted back, shoulders a touch stiffer. He said something about growth, accountability, and not living in the past. It was reasonable, but it came out clipped, almost rehearsed. Kelly, sensing tension, leaned into reassurance, saying viewers just want clarity, and the audience murmured as if clarity could be served in a 5-minute segment. Justin tried to redirect, talking about music as the one place that still feels honest. He spoke about songwriting, how emotions become melody, how time changes what you think you remember. Kelly nodded, but then asked whether he ever regrets how certain moments were handled. That word handled hung in the air like a hook. Justin's eyes narrowed for a blink. He answered that regrets are private, and that public debates don't always reflect reality. The crowd clapped lightly, but it didn't break the tension. Kelly, still professional, said she understood, but she also mentioned how some people feel dismissed when stars avoid specifics. Justin's expression hardened into a calm mask. He said he's not avoiding, he's protecting boundaries. That's when Kelly pushed again, not aggressively, but persistently, like a friend who won't drop a subject at dinner. Justin's voice remained controlled, yet the warmth was fading. He smiled without showing teeth and said, "I came here to talk about my work," emphasizing the last word in a way that signaled the warning. For a moment, Kelly tried to bring the show back to lighter ground of family life, funny backstage moments, the kind of stuff that usually resets the mood. Justin played along, but his answers were shorter now, as if he was rationing energy. The audience laughed at the small joke, and the band hit a soft transition sting, but the mood didn't fully recover. Kelly's curiosity kept circling back, and the interview felt like two people pulling on the same rope, both smiling, both refusing to let go. Then came the comment that changed everything. Kelly referenced a specific timeline, implying Justin had opportunities to speak sooner and chose silence. Even if she meant it gently, it sounded like a verdict. Justin's head tilted slightly, and he paused long enough that the quiet became noticeable. He said he doesn't accept being told when and how to process public matters. Kelly responded that public figures influence culture, and culture deserves accountability. The crowd's reaction split, some claps, some uneasy silence, like everyone suddenly realized they were watching a real argument unfold. Justin's tone sharpened, still not loud, but firm enough to cut through the studio. He said accountability isn't performative, and he refuses to treat pain like content. Kelly raised her eyebrows and said no one is asking for content, just honesty. Justin replied that honesty without context becomes weaponry. The word weaponry landed heavy. The band didn't play. The cameras stayed tight, switching between their faces like a tennis match. You could almost hear producers in the control room deciding whether to go to commercial. Kelly tried to soften again, saying she respects boundaries, but her next question sounded like a final test. She asked if Justin understands why some fans feel he benefited while others were blamed. That framing a benefited, blame that turned the discussion into a scoreboard. Justin exhaled slowly and said life isn't a scoreboard, and he's tired of conversations that reduce people to villains and victims for entertainment. Kelly looked briefly surprised, then defended her point, saying the show reflects what people talk about at home. Justin leaned forward, elbows near his knees, eyes steady on Kelly. He said, then maybe we should talk about why people need someone to punish. The audience reacted with a low "oh," the kind that signals trauma. Kelly answered that accountability isn't punishment, it's repair. Justin replied that repair happens in real life, not in a segment designed for viral clips. That line made the room shift again because it implied the show was chasing a moment. Kelly didn't like that. She smiled tightly and said her show doesn't set traps. Justin responded, it feels like one. The air snapped. Kelly's smile froze for a second before she laughed, one of those laughs that tries to dissolve tension but fails. She said, no trap, I promise. Justin didn't laugh. He said he agreed to an interview, not an interrogation. The word interrogation brought a ripple through the crowd. Kelly's voice rose slightly as she insisted she asks the same hard questions to everyone. Justin countered that hard and fair are not the same thing. The conversation became less about the topic and more about the rules of the conversation itself. Kelly said she's representing viewers who feel unheard. Justin said viewers deserve nuance, not bait. Kelly pointed out that public perception matters when you're a public figure. Justin said perception isn't always truth. It was a classic clash. Daytime TV's demand for simple answers versus a celebrity's desire to keep messy realities off the table. The audience sat still, watching two smart people talk past each other. Kelly attempted a bridge, asking what he wants people to understand, giving him a chance to clear the air. Justin's eyes flicked to the camera and back. He said he wants people to understand that he's human, that he's made mistakes, but he won't reenact private history for ratings. Kelly replied that it's not about ratings, these conversations can help people heal. Justin's response was immediate, healing isn't a product. That line hit like a cymbal crash, and the room went quiet again. Producers likely hoped for a pivot, a musical performance teaser, a clip package, anything to lighten the mood. But Justin was already pulling away, emotionally and physically. He sat back, arms close to his body, as if guarding his space. Kelly's voice stayed calm, but her questions continued to press the same wound. She asked whether he would apologize directly to those impacted. Justin said apologies should be private when possible. Kelly replied that the harm happened publicly, so the response should be public too. That's when Justin's patience started to show cracks. He said public apologies often become theater, and people still don't accept them. Kelly asked if he's afraid of backlash. Justin said he's tired of the cycle. Speak, get attacked, stay quiet, get attacked. The audience clapped at that, because it sounded like something anyone online has felt. Kelly nodded, but then said silence can feel like power. Justin's eyes narrowed again, and he responded that assuming someone's motives is also a form of power. Kelly tried to keep control of the segment, steering to a general discussion about fame and responsibility. Justin replied with the bluntness that startled the room, "You're not asking generally." Kelly countered that she's asking what viewers are asking. Justin said viewers are not one voice, and the loudest voice isn't always the fairest. Kelly's tone sharpened, "So we can't ask anything uncomfortable?" Justin said uncomfortable is fine, loaded is not. The crowd murmured again, sensing the collision getting closer. A slight delay happened, maybe a producer in her ear, maybe a signal to wrap. Kelly smiled and said, "Okay, let's switch gears." But switching gears after a skid is hard. She mentioned a fun game segment they'd planned. Justin stared for a beat, then said quietly, "I don't think I'm in the mood for games." It wasn't rude, but it was final. Kelly attempted to laugh it off, saying they can just chat. Justin shook his head and said he feels misled about the direction of the interview. The audience reacted with scattered claps and uncertain noises. Kelly insisted she never meant to mislead. Justin replied that he set clear boundaries with the booking team. Kelly said boundaries can't prevent real conversation. Justin answered that boundaries are the only reason conversation stays respectful. That word respectful felt like another accusation. Kelly's eyes flashed with frustration, but she stayed poised. She said she respects him enough to ask what matters. Justin answered that what matters to her show isn't automatically what matters to his life. Justin glanced off stage, toward where guests usually look when they're searching for help. He pressed his lips together, then looked back at Kelly. He said he appreciates the platform, but he's done. Kelly blinked and asked if he's serious. Justin nodded. The crowd gasped. Kelly tried to salvage it, saying they can take a break and come back. Justin stood up slowly, adjusting his jacket. His microphone cable tugged slightly as he rose, and a crew member moved quickly in the background. Kelly stood too, half smiling, half concerned, trying to keep it from becoming chaos. She said, "Justin, come on." Justin didn't raise his voice. He simply repeated that he's done. He looked at the audience, gave a small nod and apology without words and then turned toward the exit path guests take to backstage. The band stayed silent. The cameras followed him for a second, then cut back to Kelly, whose face showed shock mixed with determination to keep the show moving. For a few seconds, Kelly held a smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind hosts use when the script collapses. She told the audience they'd go to commercial and return. The applause was awkward, like people clapping because they don't know what else to do. Off stage, Justin's footsteps were invisible, but his departure felt loud. When the show returned, Kelly sat alone and addressed it with careful wording. She said emotions run high, and sometimes guests need space. Online, clips of the moment spread fast as short, intense, and perfect for hot takes. Some viewers praised Justin for refusing to be cornered. Others accused him of avoiding accountability. Fans argued about whether Kelly's questions were fair or whether the segment was designed to provoke. Commentators froze frames of his expression, reading meaning into every blink. The story stopped being about what was said and became about what people wanted it to mean. Boundaries versus responsibility, privacy versus public impact. Entertainment blogs speculated about what happened behind the scenes. Rumors flew about pre-interview agreements, producer notes, and whether questions were changed at the last minute. Some claimed Justin's team demanded a list of topics. Others insisted daytime shows never guarantee that. Without a full transcript, the internet filled gaps with assumptions. Meanwhile, people who work in television pointed out that live audiences can intensify any tension. Every reaction amplifies emotion, and every pause becomes a headline. The next day, sources close to the situation allegedly offered different versions. One side said Justin felt ambushed. The other side said Kelly asked responsible questions and he overreacted. The truth likely sat somewhere messy in the middle, where intent and impact collide. Publicists worked overtime, crafting statements that sounded sincere without admitting fault. Fans waited for a social post, critics waited for a confession, and the show's producers likely reviewed the footage, deciding what to air, what to trim, and how to protect the brand. Kelly addressed it again in a later segment, saying she never wants anyone to feel unsafe on her stage. She emphasized that she respects guests, but she also values honest dialogue. Justin, meanwhile, kept quiet, at least publicly, which made the debate louder. Silence is interpreted, not just heard. Some saw it as maturity, others saw it as avoidance. But the more people argued, the more the original moment became distorted, like a photo copied too many times until the details blur. Behind all the noise, the core conflict remained familiar. Celebrities are expected to be both human and symbol at once. They're asked to carry personal history like a public syllabus, to explain themselves on demand, to apologize on schedule, to perform growth on camera. Hosts are expected to balance empathy with accountability, ratings with responsibility, curiosity with care. When those expectations clash, the audience doesn't just watch, it participates. choosing sides, sharing clips, turning discomfort into a trend. If Justin walked off because he felt cornered, it's a reminder that boundaries matter even under bright lights. If Kelly pushed because she believed it was important, it's a reminder that public conversations can shape culture. Both can be true, questions can be valid, and timing can be wrong. Pressure can create honesty, and it can also create collapse. The problem is the internet rarely rewards complexity. It rewards the clean narrative, hero or villain, right or wrong, storm off or takedown. In the weeks that followed, any new Justin appearance was compared to that moment. Interviewers adjusted their approach, either tiptoeing or doubling down. Fans watched for signs of tension. Kelly's show also faced scrutiny, with some viewers praising her bravery and others accusing her of chasing drama. The industry moved on, as it always does, but the clip remained a small square video used as proof for arguments that existed long before that day. And that might be the real full story, not just a walk-off, but a collision of expectations. A guest wanting control over his narrative, a host trying to ask what the culture is already shouting, and an audience trained to treat discomfort like entertainment. In the end, Justin's exit became the loudest answer of the day. Kelly's forced smile became its own message, and everyone watching was left with the same question: when does conversation become consumption? And who gets to decide? After the clip went viral, the studio audience became a character in the story too. People replayed the gasps, the scattered claps, the uneasy laughter, analyzing them like evidence. Some said the crowd turned on Justin, others insisted the audience was supporting him. In reality, live crowds often react on instinct, not ideology. One person claps, another hesitates, a third follows. The moment becomes a wave, and that wave gets framed online as the room's verdict, even though it's just human uncertainty echoing in a theater. Backstage, you can imagine the quiet rush, producers speaking fast, assistants moving with practiced calm, someone adjusting a headset, someone else checking the rundown. Daytime television runs on timing, and a sudden walk-off punches a hole in the schedule. A segment planned for 10 minutes becomes 2. A game gets cut. A tease becomes a scramble. Meanwhile, Justin's team likely huddled near the green room, deciding whether to return, whether to issue a quick on-camera line, or whether leaving cleanly was the safest move. The hardest part in situations like this isn't the argument, it's the aftermath. When someone walks off, the tension stays behind like heat in a room after a door slams. Kelly still had to host. The audience still had to be guided back into fun daytime energy. The crew still had to keep cameras rolling and lighting perfect. That's why her composure mattered. She couldn't show chaos even if she felt it. She had to pivot, and pivots on live sets are less like turns and more like controlled falls. Online, the conversation split into camps immediately. He's protecting his peace, one side said. He's dodging responsibility, the other side argued. But most people weren't thinking in absolutes, they were thinking in feelings. Some viewers recognized the sensation of being cornered by questions that sound fair but feel loaded. Others recognized the frustration of hearing the same deflections from powerful people. That's why a walk-off hits so hard. It taps into personal experiences with conflict, shame, and control. Even the phrasing "heated clash" became part of the drama machine. Fans debated whether it was truly heated or just tense. A raised voice isn't required for a clash, as sometimes the coldest arguments are spoken calmly. Justin's restraint made it feel sharper, because it implied he was choosing every word carefully. Kelly's calm persistence also made it sharper, because it implied she wasn't going to let the conversation slide. Two calm voices can still create a storm if the stakes are emotional. In comment sections, people began rewriting the exchange like a screenplay. Some invented lines that were never said, others claimed insider information. A few accounts posted full transcripts that didn't match any real footage. That's how viral stories grow, not by accuracy, but by momentum. The more it spreads, the more it mutates, until the original moment becomes only a seed for 1,000 versions. And once that happens, truth has to compete with storytelling, and storytelling usually wins. The media also loves a symbolism angle. Justin becomes the celebrity refusing accountability. Kelly becomes the host speaking truth to power. Or the reverse. Kelly becomes the host exploiting drama. Justin becomes the guest refusing to be used. Both narratives are tempting because they're simple, but real people aren't simple. Real conversations aren't clean. Sometimes a host asks a fair question in a clumsy way. Sometimes a guest sets a boundary but does it late and dramatically. Both can be true in one messy moment. Meanwhile, brands and sponsors watch these moments like weather reports. They don't care who's right, they care whether the storm will touch them. A walk-off can spike ratings, but it can also trigger backlash. Producers weigh what to highlight, what to soften, and what to avoid repeating. Other shows take notes: which topics are too volatile, which guests are sensitive, which questions cause exits. In the TV world, one viral moment becomes a lesson plan, and everyone adjusts their playbook quietly. If Justin later releases music, fans will search lyrics for references. A single line about pressure or betrayal becomes proof. If Kelly hosts a segment about boundaries, people will connect it back. The cultural memory is sticky that way. Nothing lives alone anymore. Every moment becomes part of a timeline. That's why public conflicts feel heavier than private ones, as they don't end when the conversation ends. They keep going in reactions, stitches, duets, and commentary videos that outlive the original broadcast. The most uncomfortable truth is that audiences love tension even when they say they don't. Discomfort makes people lean in. It makes them pick sides. It gives them a feeling of being in the room. That's why clips spread faster than full episodes. A short conflict is easier to consume than long context. A walk-off is the perfect clip. It has a build-up, a turning point, and a dramatic exit. It's a story arc in under a minute. And the internet is built for arcs. If Justin felt ambushed, he might justify the walk-off as self-respect. If Kelly felt stonewalled, she might justify the push as duty. And in a way, both are performing roles the public assigned them. The singer must be honest, but not too honest. The host must be bold, but not too bold. When they step outside those invisible rules, people punish them with outrage. The irony is that outrage is also attention. And attention is the currency that keeps the whole machine running. Somewhere in the middle is a quieter possibility, that both people wanted the conversation to work, but the pace and framing made it impossible. Daytime interviews move fast, and complex topics don't fit neatly into fast segments. A meaningful discussion needs time, sensitivity, and context. But TV is built on beats, breaks, and headlines. When a serious question lands in a format designed for lightness, it can feel like a trap even if no one intended one. Format itself becomes pressure. After the dust settles, what remains is a choice: double down or move forward. Some celebrities issue long statements. Some hosts apologize. Some pretend nothing happened. Each option carries risk. Apologize and people call it damage control. Stay quiet and people call it guilt. Explain and people call it excuses. That's why silence becomes common, and not because nothing happened, but because every word becomes another spark. In that sense, the walk-off is both an ending and a shield. If the show's team edits the episode for re-air, they might tighten the segment, remove pauses, or trim the sharpest lines. But the internet already has the raw emotion, and dry emotion always beats polished packaging. Fans prefer what feels real, even if it lacks context. That preference changes how hosts interview and how guests prepare. Everyone becomes more guarded. Everyone becomes more strategic. The tragedy is that the desire for authenticity often creates more performance, not less. In the long run, moments like this don't ruin careers, so they reshape narratives. They become that time when a broken bar reference people bring up whenever a similar issue appears. It turns into a cautionary tale for celebrities and a trophy moment for commentary channels. The irony is that the truth of the moment may be simple. Two people reached a boundary and responded differently. But because fame turns everything into symbolism, a boundary becomes a headline, and the headline becomes the battleground. As the clip continued circulating, fans began hunting for the uncut version, convinced there had to be more. That search itself became part of the spectacle. Accounts reposting slowed-down footage, zooming in on Kelly's expression, pausing on Justin's pause, adding captions that leaned into one side or the other. A few creators claimed they could read lips when the camera cut away. Others said they recognized the producer's hand gesture in the background. The truth is, Certainty sells. So people package guesses like facts. The talk show ecosystem thrives on rhythm, setup, laugh, heartfelt moment, plug, performance. A walk-off disrupts that rhythm, and disruption becomes irresistible. Other hosts referenced it indirectly. We won't make anyone storm out today. With a chuckle that half the audience found funny and half found cruel. Late-night monologues teased at pop culture podcasts dedicated full episodes. Suddenly, the incident wasn't just an awkward interview, it was a trending topic, a case study, a debate prompt, a meme template. Some viewers blamed the format. Daytime TV feels cozy, like a living room, so serious questions land with extra sting. It's different than a hard news interview where attention is expected. Kelly's show has built a reputation for warmth, music, and empathy, which is why the clash felt so jarring. When a warm space turns sharp, it feels like betrayal to the audience, even if the questions were reasonable. Expectations are invisible contracts to break them, and people react emotionally, not logically. Justin's body language became a headline all by itself. People described the moment his shoulders pulled back, the instant his smile stopped, the way he looked toward the exit. Analysts called it fight or flight. Fans called it standing on business. Critics called it stonewalling. But body language is tricky. Stress looks different on everyone, and cameras exaggerate everything. A blink becomes a statement, a swallow becomes guilt, a laugh becomes arrogance. In viral culture, the camera doesn't just record emotion, it manufactures meaning. Kelly's perspective also got dissected. Some praised her for not backing down, saying hosts should ask questions that matter. Others accused her of being performative, pushing pain for clicks. The reality is that hosts are under their own pressures. Producers want a compelling segment, networks want engagement, audiences want realness. A host can start with honest intention and still end up in a heated moment because the machine behind them nudges toward tension. Good intentions don't cancel bad outcomes. The biggest question people argued about was consent. Did Justin agree to discuss sensitive topics, or did he request limitations that weren't honored? Did Kelly get a briefing that implied he was open to it? Did someone miscommunicate, or did someone gamble? In entertainment, miscommunication happens often. Teams trade emails, bullet points shift, soft questions become hard questions at the last minute. When that happens, the guest feels ambushed and the host feels blindsided. The public never sees those invisible wires. Off camera, if Justin's team felt the segment crossed a line, they'd likely contact the show immediately, asking for context, editing choices, and future statements. If the show felt Justin's exit was unfair, they might frame it as his choice, not their fault. Both sides protect their brand because public perception is money, opportunities, and leverage. That's why official statements often sound carefully neutral. We respect each other and wishing him the best, while unofficial leaks do the dirty work of shaping public opinion. Viewers also debated whether walking off is inherently disrespectful. Some saw it as rude to the audience, the host, and the crew. Others saw it as the healthiest thing someone can do when they feel cornered. The truth is complicated. Leaving can be both a boundary and a disruption. It can protect a person and harm a production. It can be necessary and still messy. What makes it explosive is the performance of Ida standing up on camera turns a private boundary into a public statement, whether intended or not. Over time, the internet tends to flatten events into slogans. He got exposed. She crossed the line. He couldn't handle the heat. She asked what needed to be asked. Those slogans are easy to share, and they become people's positions. But the real world lives in gray. Sometimes a host is right to ask. Sometimes the timing is wrong. Sometimes a guest owes reflection. Sometimes the audience is owed nothing. People hate that answer, because it doesn't give them a side to join, and sides are social currency. If the show later booked another high-profile guest, viewers would watch with suspicion. Will she push again? If Justin appeared on another platform, viewers would watch for softness or defensiveness. Did he learn? That's how public narratives work. They follow people like shadows. Even when the moment is over, it becomes a lens. Every future smile becomes calculated. Every future tear becomes PR. That's the cost of living in a culture that treats everyone's pain like an episode recap. In a strange way, The incident also highlights the hunger for real conversation. People keep sharing the clip because they want honesty, yet the environment punishes honesty. The moment someone speaks plainly, they get misquoted, clipped, and attacked. So celebrities become guarded, and hosts become strategic, and audiences become suspicious. The cycle repeats. A walk-off is not just drama, it's a symptom. It's the moment the performance cracks and everyone sees the machinery underneath, if only for a few seconds. If there was a lesson, it might be this: conflict is inevitable, but care is optional. A host can ask hard questions with softness and patience. A guest can set boundaries earlier, with clarity, before the conversation reaches a cliff. Producers can prioritize trust over virality. Audiences can demand context instead of clips. But those are choices, and choices are harder than outrage. Outrage is quick, context is work, and the internet will always reward what's quick unless people consciously refuse. Still, there's something human in the walk-off that people can't stop watching. It's the moment someone says, "I'm done," and means it. Whether you agree with him or not, that kind of finality is rare in public life, where everyone is trained to keep smiling. The audience felt it, Kelly felt it, the crew felt it. That's why the air changed. A boundary drawn in public has gravity. It forces everyone else in the room to confront the fact that not everything can be smoothed over.